Hey everybody. It's been a long time actually since we've hopped on a live stream here at Effective. Welcome. It's good to be back doing this a little bit. I know my time has been a little all over the place as of lately, so videos have been pretty sparse. Live streaming has been basically non-existent up to this point. So that's really the story there. However, I figured it would be fun to take a little bit of time. I've had a project sitting inside of my task manager for a while to set up a dashboard inside of Obsidian. So I thought it could be fun to sit down and try to build some of this out on the live stream today. If you haven't checked out Obsidian Canvas yet, that's what I'm going to be using to build a dashboard out. I think it's going to be a really interesting solution. I've used softwares like Miro and others quite a bit over the years, and Obsidian Canvas is just awesome because it's integrated right within your Obsidian vault. So if you're already working in there a lot, it's a great way to use a whiteboarding type tool. Two, it's all offline. You can do this without an internet connection. You don't have to sync it up, and that's pretty awesome. And three, you can do some really neat stuff querying notes using dataview, just pulling in sections of notes. And so I'm hoping to explore a little bit of that tonight. So if you're catching this live stream after the fact, as I'm guessing many of you are, I just kind of jumped onto this last second. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you for subscribing to the channel as well, if you are subscribed. And we're just going to dive in and get going here. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat or leave them in the comments if you're catching this after the fact. But yeah, with that, let's get rolling. I'm just going to check my audio, make sure it's coming through here as I'm expecting. And if you're catching any issues, it's been a while since I've done some streaming and I redid my studio a little bit. And so if you're seeing anything, let me know in the chat. But with that, let's dive in. All right. Yeah, so I've got just a blank dashboard, a canvas here on the screen. And one of the things I'm looking to do here is, you can see on the left-hand side, I've got my things project laid out. Basically, I want this to be the regular stop where I can go to open up my vault. I'm not using it on this Mac generally. I'm using it on my phone and on my iPad because I can't use Obsidian for work stuff, so it has to be more mobile. And this is more high-level things that I am just wanting to keep on my mind here and there. So it's things like my yearly theme, the checklists that I need regularly. So having a list of those to access, such as a weekly review that I can just jump into so I don't have to store it inside of things. My daily non-negotiables. That's an interesting concept I've been playing with over the last few months. Those are the items that I just want to make sure that I touch on at least every single day, or at least have top of mind in some capacity. Things like exercise. I think I have a list in this vault that I'll take a look at here in just a second. But I want a place where I can review those every single day. And then keeping again, this is all like a high-level dashboard. So not necessarily I'm working off of this on a day-to-day basis, but things I want to keep top of mind or that I want to chase or explore, things that I want to research that I'm not necessarily committed to acting on yet, but I want to keep in a spot. Notes that I've recently dug into, and then a flesh out list. So these are ideas that I need to spend more time thinking through. I might touch on them every couple of weeks or so, but just having a place where I can see them and say, oh yeah, I had this thought about this the other day, then I can log it in there. That is what I'm looking for here. If you haven't already checked out Danny Hatcher's YouTube channel, this is where I've drawn some inspiration from these ideas. So he's got a couple of videos over on his channel, Danny Hatcher. And if you haven't checked those out about the dashboards that he's been building inside of Canvas, definitely recommend doing that. So what I'm going to start off with here is I'm going to pull in my theme, which is Year of the Roaring Lion. So that's my theme for the year. So got that there. Checklists that I need regularly. This one I think is going to be a vault or note. Just regular checklists. Create that note, and the lovely thing is you can create it and edit it here right in Canvas if you haven't done so already. Or let's see here. I'm still getting used to using Canvas because I don't use it all that often. When I do use it, it's more on my iPad, and so it's the interacting with it is a little different. There. I'm also still used to using like Mural because I use Mural a lot for work and Miro for personal things sometimes. And being able to click and drag to move is kind of something that I'm really used to doing. So a regular checklist I know that I need to build is my weekly review. And then I know another one that I often do is like spring setup, fall cleanup. They're more seasonal. So we'll just put that there. Weekly review is really the one that I have been wanting to go through lately. I'll do checklist, and then I'll just display it as weekly review. So that way the note has a delineation in my vault, but it's not super redundant here. Okay, so we'll build that out in just a little bit, that checklist. Daily non-negotiables. I think if I remember correctly. Yeah, I already have that. So we'll add that. I'm just getting it all kind of splattered on the canvas right now. And then we'll do a little bit of arranging. I'm not sure about these weekly plans and weekly plan notes yet. This is kind of a holdover from the planner that I did in Notion a couple years ago. When I was using that, I was wanting a way to have an interface that I could move around flexibly when I was primarily using the bullet journal to manage my productivity needs. And so what ended up happening there is that I had weekly plans that would kind of flex and flow over the week inside of Notion. That's a little different now, but this might be part of the weekly review that I build out. I haven't really figured that out yet. This things I want to chase or explore is going to be another note. Not what I want to do. Wrong app. Let's see. Just call this the Explore list. Going to do so the Explore list is more for, we'll just add a comment in here. This is for topic areas. It's kind of a jump off point inside my vault. And the flesh out list is notes I want to spend more time on intentionally. And then there's a recently modified notes. Let's see here. That's not what I want. And then in here, I don't think I have dataview installed. On this vault, I've tried to keep, I do have it installed. I don't think I have it enabled. I've tried to keep this vault pretty minimal when it comes to plugins installed. You can see I have quite a few here, but I'm not really using a lot of them quite yet. But one of the things I want to do is build this out. Dataview. Just looking up the dataview query languages, and I'll pull it up on screen here. I'm not that familiar with doing some of these, so I just want to basically just get a list. I want to limit it to about 10 notes. I've done this a few times, but it's been a while. I do know I want this. And I'm wondering, trying to decide if I want it as a table or a list. Well, we can try both. Why not? Okay. So we're going to sort. I want to sort this by modified time and then limit to 10. Okay. Let's see if that does it. Nope, I think I need to have a from statement there for sort. Either that or date the file was last modified. Okay. All right. This is what always messes me up here is this querying. Data commands. From folder, from file. Let's take a look at tags over here real quick. All right. Probably sure what I want to do there actually. List from time. I want to do it modified time because I want the like most recent notes on my list. I want to sort them by descending. Let's try table and see what that does. Yeah, it's the sort that's tripping this up here. So if I do this, I sort here, then that's where it messes up. Resources, examples. Sometimes this just helps. Kind of wondering if I just need to throw this in here so it has something to do. Well, it'd be table. There we go. So this will show my recently modified notes in the vault. I might want to expand that beyond just 10, but that gives me a good sense of kind of an easy access on getting back into what what I've been working on. Obviously right now it's all notes regarding this dashboard here. Okay, so that basically gets where I want there for now. I know there's a million other things I could probably do. Some of this is a lot of this is going to be really just manual in a sense, and I think that's okay. There's some cool stuff that I'm looking at. If you're new to the channel here, I used to publish almost every single week videos about Obsidian and PKM, and with my job changes that I had this last fall, it was really difficult to start to do that again. And so it's been kind of interspersed almost on a monthly basis, but the last few months have been kind of nuts. And so I haven't really been able to get to making much for videos. But one of the things that I'm looking at doing is as I ramp up production for videos or other projects that I'm working on is having a space in here to kind of track those. Because I don't think a video project really makes sense to have in a task manager like Things, because you're basically just checking off like 6 boxes. But if you want to, this is really a tool like Obsidian or Notion is where you're going to manage the scripts, the scheduling, kind of the nitty gritty details, checklists for a lot of that. And so I don't necessarily think that's the best option to have it inside here, but I haven't really felt the need to do that either. So this flesh out list, that's something that I want to do here. And then the explore list. I'm also curious if any of you watching are using Obsidian's Canvas for some kind of a dashboard like this as well. It'd be really interesting to know if this is an idea that is catching on inside of the space, or if you're using it more to flesh out ideas, or if you're just not using it at all. Some modes of thought just don't necessarily lend to using a visual map like this, and that's totally okay. I feel like there's something else that I could build out in here. I'm going to take a look at these data view queries again. that would be useful? Because I'm just not remembering it at the moment as to what would be valuable. I think that's what I want to do. Okay, what I'm going to build now is recent sources. Recent source notes. Okay, so we're going to take this same idea here, except I'm going to limit this. It's going to be created time. I'm going to sort it by created time. We're going to go from source, because that's the tag that I'm using in my vault for notes created by Readwise and other source or literature notes that I'm bringing in. And it's probably because we made a tag. Yeah, it shouldn't need that. Okay. Let's take the limit off for now. Take the source off for a second. I'm going to go list from source. I have a source tag here. It says I have 299 notes. You can see here. So it does exist. There is content. From source, okay. I want to go back up to query languages. Oh, I don't, it's the quote. That's what's messing it up. There we go. So this from source. Then limit 10. Okay, yep. This is all the created. Most recently created. I can also do the same thing that I did up here. I'm going to do that as created. So table file.ctime as created. There it is. This is also helpful to just keep perspective with what I have been reading and syncing from Readwise. And for some reason, I think this plugin keeps turning off on me because I have a notes Readwise folder. Yep, Readwise. And that's where those are synced. Okay, and that's cool too because it now shows me that I have stuff synced in here, which is great. I think I need to fix my Kindle highlights though because I have quite a few of those that are not syncing in. It looks like. Also might be modified date too since I'm sorting by created date. Yeah, so source notes, that's just a really great jump off point to get into stuff that I've been reading recently. Modified notes, oh yeah, that popped in there as well. I might, since I have this, from minus source, I'm gonna remove all the source notes here since we have these are down here. That's the fun of doing this, right? Is as you get into it, you realize that, oh, this is conflicting with this is conflicting with that. So then we have to make changes to it to get it all the data refined, which is ultimately the fun part, right? Okay. I've got these. That's great. I've got source notes. I feel like there's something else that I'm missing here as well. Flesh out lists, weekly plans. Maybe that's something I can experiment with a little bit here. As I mentioned, in Notion, I used to build out these weekly plans. And it's possible that I really just need to have maybe even just a section down here with cards. Maybe it's more of a group. So I'll create a group where I can just add some cards inside of this. I do think the default sizing of Obsidian's cards are weird. It's kind of goofy, but so be it. Okay, what do I need for weekly planning? A lot of that is what happens in my weekly review. I'm usually doing some kind of a mind sweep. In the past, I've kept track of a few different things when it comes to planning. One of the big ones is just the major rocks for the week. Those are really managed on my calendar, and so I don't think I need to replicate those here, especially because I basically live and die by my calendar at work anymore, which is not what it used to be like. So there used to be a lot more flexibility in the schedule, but now it's centered around a lot of meetings and blocking off time and all that, which has been positive and negative for me in some ways. Positive, especially because it's forced me to set time aside to get the work done that I need to get done. And so I don't need to do calendar. Another thing that I've done in the past is like major efforts that I'm focusing on in that week. And I think that's probably what this section needs to focus on. I don't know if I would necessarily call it a goal, but more of at the end of this week, when Friday or Saturday hits, what do I want to have accomplished? What does the outcome look like? And I think that's really the big thing here. What do I want my outcome to be for the week if I'm going to plan it? And I'm so used to being able to hit Command D and do some of that. This is really where that's going to go. Just going to do this. I know you can do it all in one, but I'm not going to. I'm going to start with that because I think I need to actually get into doing some planning. A lot of this stuff, sorry, I'm all over the place there. A lot of this stuff comes out more naturally for me when I'm actually doing it. I've found that when I try to put structure in place for productivity processes without naturally forming it as I go, I'm less likely to actually use it. So what this is really here, it's a spot for me to start with something that allows me to keep things that I want top of mind, to keep them top of mind. But then it allows me to flexibly build it out. Because I absolutely need to have things front and center sometimes to keep me on track with them, especially if they're longer term projects or if they're more nebulous in nature. I need to be able to see what's there. So for example, if I'm looking at building out a community strategy, I need to be able to see like, what's my vision for this community? What's my vision for this thing that I'm building? I need to have it in a place where I can come back to it and see it so that when I'm working on that community strategy, that it is actually viable for me to be able to do that. Because otherwise it just gets lost in my head. And it's just difficult to remind myself of that. You get committed to something and passionate about something, but you don't always remember this is really the mission that we're on right now. This is really the grand vision that I have with all of these different components. And now I'm going to dig into one of those component areas and really build it out. And then you got to come back up and see the big picture and how it all fits together. Being able to fit all those pieces together is where the challenge ultimately comes for me. And so part of having this dashboard is to fill that need. And I want to just make sure that I have a spot to do that. And, I might build this out. I might use this for a month and then realize, I'm not actually using it as much as I thought I would. And that's okay. But it's been in the back of my mind for a couple weeks now, actually over a month, to build out something like this. Now in the weekly review, I'm going to build this checklist out. This is really just a pretty simple checklist. And I used to have a really complex checklist that I work off of for a weekly review. I still kind of do a lot of that stuff. If you want to check out that checklist, you can get it over at weekly review checklist or template.net, I believe. It's been a long time since I've even said that. Let me check that out. It's weeklyreviewchecklist.net or thinkeffective.co/weekly review if you want to check it out. It's something that I've used in the past. There's a guide as well for it, but you can get the checklist there. I think it's part of that. Anyway, it's been helpful to have something that I can go back to, but what I've been doing recently for a weekly review is so much simpler than this. I am spending a bunch of time minesweeping on paper. I'm literally taking a blank sheet of paper out and I'm noting down tasks, questions on my mind, little notes, literally anything that comes to mind. As I get into the flow of that, it all just unloads out onto the paper. If you haven't done a minesweep or brain dump or something like that, I know it's a GTD thing, and I'm not a huge GTD practitioner in a lot of regards, but I've found it really helpful when I can actually sit down and get in the flow of doing it. What Chris Bailey calls scatter focus mode is where your brain is going to all of the loose ends and open loops, trying to close them off, trying to get them out, trying to process through them. And so it's a game changer when you can actually get into that. Actually probably 80% of the value in doing a minesweep is actually just doing it and getting it out on paper. So it's not all causing stress and build up in your mind and in your emotions. I actually don't even always do everything on those sheets. I don't always transfer them into a task manager after the fact because sometimes I just need to get it out of my head and then I'm fine. So the big idea here is to do a minesweep on paper. Then I absolutely need to do a review of my calendar. I need to look back 2 weeks, ahead 6 weeks. This allows me to pull items into today that maybe I forgot I need to follow up on something from a meeting or that I need to prep for a meeting coming up. That is the most important part. If you don't have a lot of meetings, reviewing your calendar is probably not the most important thing to do, but it's definitely worth a look at your calendar. The other thing that I need to do on a weekly review basis is to review all the lists. So this is everything inside of things right now for me. I need to review and make sure that all the projects are up to date. I need to make sure that my scheduled items, my upcoming items, I also need to review and make sure that the projects list that I have inside of things accurately reflects project tracking that I have anywhere else. Because sometimes I need to make sure that I'm logging notes or logging tasks inside of things just to make sure they stay in front of me. I don't always work out of a project management tool for work, but when I do, I don't necessarily need to move items over into things. But again, it's really important that I keep this up to date. The Minesweep really helps with that. Making sure that I'm intentional to go through all of these lists really helps with that as well. I need to review the dashboard. That's a big piece of it once this gets going, because I need to make sure that this is accurate and up to date. Also, there might be items that spark from looking at this explore list or this flesh out list that I'm reminded of. And from there, honestly, that's really it. I think probably just to round it all out is to do some reflection. Sometimes I'll journal, sometimes I'll do a literal retrospective style activity if you're familiar with Agile. What went well, what didn't go well, what could improve. I won't necessarily do a full on what should I stop doing, start doing, keep doing, things of that sort. But it can be really helpful to look at the last week and figure out, hey, maybe something didn't go so well. Maybe I need to make an adjustment the next week. And then to look ahead. To look ahead and set the outcomes for the next week. I don't always like to be the most planned. A lot of times when I make plans, they go sour. And so when I do plan, sometimes it adds more stress to my plate is what I'm trying to say. And so setting outcomes for the week can be a good thing or a bad thing for me. This is one thing that I may or may not stick with it. I like to find myself more naturally in the flow of things. And so if I'm doing stuff on my productivity system, if I'm actively working on things, sometimes tracking them or writing them down like this, trying to create a process out of it, takes all the value out of it for me. Like this week, for example, and I've tried this in the past before, but this week I have intentioned myself that the hour between 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock in the morning is quiet time. Then I'm trying to spend probably 20 to 30 minutes of quiet time reading and doing other things during that hour. It doesn't have to be the full hour because sometimes I have kids that are awake and I need to attend to their needs during that time frame. But other times it is the whole hour, and that's a great thing. And then that next hour, 7 to 8, is my planning hour where I'm just going through the lists inside of things and I'm making my today list for the day. And so all of that together, in the past, I've tried to do that in more of a checklisted way and time block it out that way. But having the mental markers of this is my aim during this hour, it's not necessarily the whole hour and I have to stick to the whole hour to make it valuable, but just say, I'm focusing on this in this hour. It's going to be my aim to accomplish this thing during this hour has been a huge game changer. I don't put it on my calendar. I don't have it blocked in, but it's the mental choice there. I feel like when I externalize something like this in a calendar, sometimes it shifts my mental thinking. And let me explain that a little bit. I'm going to just go to the face cam view here for now on this one, since we're not really doing much inside of Obsidian. But the idea with this is that when I put something on my calendar, what happens is it switches my thinking from this is an internally motivated action to an externally motivated action. And that can be a problem, frankly. And I've noticed that for me, when I externally motivate myself too much, when I put the onus of reminding me on a tool or in a process more than I do something internal for myself. Oh, Nathan, I'm sorry if it's too quiet. Let me turn it up here real quick. Is that better for you? Should be a little bit better. Had to up the gain on my mic a little bit. Again, it's been a little while since I've done some streaming, so appreciate the feedback. I've had to do a bunch of changes. But basically, when I externalize too much, when I put the onus on my tool to have me do something, then ultimately I start to check out. And I don't know, I interact with that activity in a different way. It's the same thing that I was mentioning earlier, if you were listening, that if I try to structure, I add too much structure. So for example, looking back in Obsidian here real quick, looking at this weekly planning stuff, if I add too much structure to this, it's not going to be valuable to me, because I'm going to feel like I have to fit the structure of this and accomplish the structure versus and be dictated by that, instead of actually just digging in and getting the work done. Being a little bit more freeform for me has been better almost always when it comes to actually getting work done. And so it's been this challenge I've had of trying to walk the line of how much structure is helpful and how much structure is not helpful. And so when I can find that balance, sometimes I go too much one way or the other. If I go too much structure one way, I am pushing myself too hard and then ultimately falling off the wagon with everything because I just structured it way too heavily. If I go too far the other direction, then what happens is that I just end up floating around like a noodle in space, not really sure what to do with myself or my life, and then that's not very fun. For me, I'd still get my responsibilities taken care of, but it's more difficult for me to advance things that I'm building forward in a mindset like that because I don't have a plan of action forward. I need, excuse me here. I need to have an idea of what comes next. And that's part of the planning, really, is what I have. If I can keep a high-level view of where I'm heading, and maybe actually the issue here is not weekly. The issue is making this time-bound. If I just say planning, make this my planning group, and I just maybe have a few outcomes that I'm chasing to keep myself top of mind, that's probably going to be a little bit better for me in the long run. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Have you all experienced challenges with planning or managing these types of things? Because I know I have. Just a little bit of behind the scenes here. Probably for the last 18 months, I've had this oscillation of difficulty with managing myself in terms of what comes next. And I've realized that part of it is because I've had a difficulty developing outcome-based thinking. My career has shifted from more reactionary work For example, I was in IT work for over half of my career and then switched into doing marketing and community work, which is all more building. So IT support, very reactive, but now it's a very proactive world. And I've noticed myself having difficulty at times shifting my mindset of how I approach that work. Because when you're in a very reactive world, it's, all right, I need to handle all the balls coming at me and stay on top of them. I think a task manager like Obsidian, or OmniFocus, or things rather, works really, really well for something like that, because all you're trying to do is capture stuff, clarify it, act on it, get it done, forget about it, move on to the next thing. You're managing the workload because there's tons of work that's coming at you in a reactive environment. I would contend, too, that a lot of knowledge work around the turn of the millennium, the turn of the century, was really reactive based, because now we had this never-ending funnel of activity coming at us called email. And as a result of this never-ending flow of emails, that we felt like we had to develop these systems in order to be successful. I don't know if that's right or not, but that's really kind of the feeling that I've had when it comes to thinking about work. But now I feel like time has moved on, and some things are still very reactionary. Depends on the kind of role that you're in, and depends on the level of role that you're in as well. But I know for myself, in the fields that I have switched into working in, yes, there is still very much a component of have to keep on top of all of the details, but there is very much a component of I have these big picture things that I need to take from concept to reality. And I'm not talking about videos or designs or podcasts. I'm talking about bigger business initiatives that can be a little bit challenging to get your head around. And this is where I think tools like Obsidian actually come in really handy. And in fact, it's one of the reasons I wish, just due to security reasons, I can't really use Obsidian at work, because it's an outside, unapproved third-party software. But I wish I could, because I feel like the ability to link your thoughts, like Obsidian allows, would allow and does allow for greater thought processing. Like in the dashboard here. Literally, one of the things that I'm creating is this explore list, or this flesh out list is rather. This is ideas that I'm actively working on trying to flesh out. Where do I take this channel next? I don't really know, based upon the time that I have. What do I do with my life? I don't really know. I mean, that's kind of a joke, but I have a budding music studio basically that I'm working on in the same space here as well. How do I intentionally flesh that out and do something purposeful and meaningful with it, other than just noodling around on songs that I've been working on? These are the types of things that I need to spend more time fleshing out. But they're not necessarily actionable items. I just need to spend time thinking about them. And I'm not always going to be thinking about them in my head. Sometimes that's the worst place for me to think about them, because I get stuck in loops and cycles. So I can get the ideas out here, flesh them out inside of Obsidian or a tool like that. And then once I'm ready to start acting on them, move them into a tool like Things or OmniFocus. That's where really the value starts to come in. One last thing before I hop off for the night, because I will be needing to go here. I really appreciate all of you joining the stream today. I know it was really last minute to get this one going, and I haven't done a stream in a really long time. So really appreciate everyone for sticking around and catching up here a little bit. But I've been thinking through productivity systems and how really they work for me. And the way I've been thinking about it is kind of interesting. It's kind of like the way your brain works, almost in a sense. And I'm saying that fully aware that there is building a second brain, this whole concept of a second brain. Put that concept to the side because that's not what I'm talking about right now. It's completely different, though there may be some analogs and similarities between the two of them. But basically, and I guess maybe I can just pull a note up here. I don't know really the right way to put this, but the way I've been thinking about productivity systems is like your working memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. So working memory is what's relevant now. And the way that I've been handling working memory for myself is paper, literally paper right in front of me. And the reason for that is that I find interacting with paper to be a heck of a lot easier in the moment. I don't get distracted out of flow. If I have a sheet of paper or a pad of paper right literally here next to my mouse, it's a lot easier for me to just pick up a pen and write something down and then come back to it and move it into something later if I need it. Or I just do it and I don't worry about it anymore. It's really kind of capture in a sense. It's notes, it's thoughts, it's ideas, but just having a place to write them down. Short-term memory is really kind of what's relevant today or this week. And this is like my daily plan, basically, in things. This is my today list. Things that I need to access on a short-term basis. If I'm not actively working on it, maybe it's something that I'm going to be working on later. It's also my calendar in a lot of regards. And then long-term memory are the project lists, PKM, etc. It's a lot less structured, but more structured in some ways. If that makes any sense at all, which it probably doesn't. Long-term memory, so we're looking at Obsidian project lists and things, someday, etc. I've been thinking about productivity in terms of this because there's been this mental model that's been missing for me. And it's been this working memory bit. I've done a lot of this, short-term memory, a lot of capturing into inboxes, a lot of working on stuff like that, where it's going into a digital tool somewhere and I'm trying to find it and retrieve it later. But this whole concept and idea of working memory where it's a place where it's literally an external extension of my brain right now of, okay, I need to remember this now. I need to write this down. I need to make sure I have mind of this because it also allows me to flesh that idea out either now or later. Really, really helps. But then the short-term memory is kind of what I'm most used to, which is, planning my day out, picking my tasks, figuring out what I want to do this week. And then long-term memory is really a lot of the common getting things done methodology stuff that many of us are used to. But this is just a random thing that I've been thinking through over the last few weeks, and it's actually been really helping me in terms of sorting out my productivity practice again, because as with this career change and this new focus in my life, I've had to flex and flow with it. And one of the things I've talked about in my podcast process over the years, which is kind of defunct for a couple of years now, but it's still floating out there if you want to look it up, has really been that you have to design a productivity system for yourself in the season of life that you're in. And sometimes that season changes, and therefore you need to shift and flux and flow and adjust with how you're approaching those. You can't always just build one system and run with it forever. You build the system that you need as minimal as possible for the season that you're in, and then you go from there. I don't know. That's really what's been on my mind a lot lately. I hope you all are having a fantastic day. It's coming to the end of mine right now, and so I'm going to sign off, but I really appreciate you sticking around for this live stream. I hope to do more of these in the future. I'm going to do them as I'm able, but I'm signing off for the night. Thanks so much for sticking around. To catch you in the next one, but until then, stay effective. Thanks, everybody.